Welcome to Finlos Lives. This past weekend was the 20th anniversary of the death of my mother. I've said in the past that these annual reminders that we tend to engage with, anniversaries, birthdays, holidays, they're arbitrary given the nature of time, but they are also helpful as a way of gauging things like physical or mental health, especially as we check to see how we are engaging or disengaging with life's complications, our processes of healing and building relationships, and acknowledging where we presently reside on the continuum of our individual lives. 20 is a number like any other, but for me, this anniversary stood out for its coincidental relationship to my own age. I am 40, and when I realized that my mother has now been dead longer than she was a part of my life, I was fairly shook. For anyone who has lost a loved one, you can empathize with how much life can be changed by the sudden lack of that person. But then how over time we make room for the loss, then we redecorate around it, and eventually incorporate it into our daily functioning. Helpful or not, the process is fairly normal in this modern life. We lose, we mourn, we move on. The person we lost transitions from entity to myth. My mother remained present in my memory for many years as the former, but this anniversary jolted me with just how much her being dead had become a thing that happened. A life without her, without being able to call or see her, that our kids never knew her, was just normal. It also stirred up a lot of feelings and memories that, while not really being settled or resolved, had certainly been filed away to the to-get-to corner of my mind and left to gather dust. So I hope you'll indulge this process of excavating my mom from dormancy in my mind and life. I don't know how long this process will take, either in terms of real-time or episodic content, but I expect I might be exploring these ideas for a while. My hope is that the process of remembering her and the experience of our time together, and then my loss of her, can filter through to some universal ideas and have value. If not, it will still be nice just to talk about her. So, stay if you will, leave if you must, but either way, welcome. Really, this is about me trying to make sense of my own memories and see if they make sense with the way my mom and others in my life actually showed up. It's also about me trying to come to a more honest appreciation of the person my mother was, so that when I remember her, it is with accuracy and care, and not just nostalgia and a longing for the simplicity of childhood. I suppose it would be good to start at the beginning with my oldest memory. For a long time, I was afraid to share this memory with members of my family because there is a long tradition of telling me that the things I say I remember never happened. I'm the baby of 5 kids, by the way. But I've had this one confirmed. We moved to Florida from Ohio when I was a little over a year old, and we went as a family to the Miami Metro Zoo, or just Metro Zoo as it was known back then. And at the time, the Disney characters were touring, and they just so happened to be at the Metro Zoo on the day that we were there. And so my memory is of my father picking me up from the ground and putting me into the arms of Donald Duck, and then Donald Duck passing me to each of the Disney characters from Goofy to Mickey and so on. I think this is an interesting memory because, for me at least, it highlights how much of our emotions shape our memories. In this regard, the movie Inside Out is such a great tool, and shout out to Eva who uses the Pixar film in some of her training sessions. But I think maybe this memory really primed me for the anxiety, conflict avoidance, and people-pleasing qualities I would have growing up. And to continue another theme of this podcast, it also primed me for a life of insecure attachments. At first, the insecurity was caused by unpredictability with the people around me, and later, caused by me through these learned behaviors that I overgenerously labeled and dependence. My parents would soon divorce after this event, and for the next few years of my life, she was not present, mostly living in Korea with a new partner. This is one of the many conversations I wish I would have been able to have with her. Why did you leave? I can think of many reasons that are plausible. She had married very, very young, and her first marriage before my father was extremely volatile and problematic. And she also married my father when she was still extremely young. And I can imagine that she felt that she had never had the opportunity to live or have much adventure. Maybe she just needed a break. She had been with my father for close to 15 years, had 5 kids, and I could see or understand a need just to get away for a while. Maybe she was avoiding the conflicts of a relationship filled with strife. Maybe she was simply running away from all of the things that caused her pain. These questions or ideas didn't occur to me when I was younger. I couldn't really remember her because I was so young when she left. Also, because I was so young, I didn't really have any bitterness or animosity about her absence. All I knew was what I heard from my siblings, that she and Dad just didn't get along, and so they divorced. It made sense that she would want to be where she was happy. I don't remember hearing from her for the 2 years she was in Korea. I would hear things, again, from my siblings, like she was having a good time, and that she was going to bring us back lots of gifts. I assumed this was through letters or phone calls that I was not privy to. I was almost 5 years old when she came back. Now, I'm going to fast forward a little bit here to 2017, when I came into possession of a recording my mom made for us while she was in Korea with her new partner. This was a shock to me because, well, I didn't know the recording existed, first of all. But also, hearing her voice as she talked about missing us, the things she was doing while she was there, how she was adjusting, that being away was hard for her, affected me a lot. And it stirred a lot of feelings, to say the least. I was sad that I didn't get to hear her talk about these things in the moment. I was a little confused that she never actually sent the tape while she was there. I was really excited to hear her voice. And it was really exciting because it was her voice when she was still so young. But then I was angry. I was angry that she chose to be away. I was angry that neither she nor my father ever considered talking to me about this, because there was obviously an arrangement that they had. And I was angry that when she came back, she was essentially a stranger and expected me to accept her as mother. And I did, without question or doubt. Eva and I have talked about how we deal with people coming and going in our lives so differently. For me, people leaving is just a part of life, and when they leave, those relationships go dormant. I don't cut them off, but I also don't pursue maintaining them. And then if at some point in the future that person re-enters my life, the relationship turns back on. But of course, without the work of maintaining a relationship, the likelihood of that person coming back in a meaningful way diminishes over time. Eva, on the other hand, experiences these interruptions or changes in relationship dynamics as very painful and dysregulating. And when they do occur, she takes great care in making sure to maintain the relationship. And while its inherent nature changes, that relationship is still something that can flourish, even at a distance. Looking back on this time of my childhood, I can see why I developed this method of coping with inconsistent caring relationships. I never questioned that my parents loved me or that they were doing the best that they could given the circumstances of their lives. But when my mom returned from Korea and established a home in a different part of the state, each of us siblings would take turns and rotate staying with either my mom or my dad. So not only were my parental relationships inconsistent, but so were my sibling relationships. This was only made worse by our age differences. My oldest brother is 12 years my senior, so when I was turning 5, he was graduating from high school and going off to college. The sibling closest in age to me is my sister, who is 5 years older. The combination of age differences, regular movement of homes, and rotating parents meant a lot of turning on and off of these important immediate relationships. As I was moving between parents who themselves were changing homes fairly regularly, it also meant that I was changing schools a lot. And so even my friendships fell into this on-again, off-again pattern. I wonder what my mom would say to this. We didn't have the language to name our relationship beyond mother and son. Would it hurt her to know that our bond was one based on insecure attachment? One that meant that while she was present in my life, she was like the sun. But when she wasn't, I put her existence away in mental storage. I love my mother deeply. 20 years without her has given me enough distance from the pain of her loss to grieve her exit from my life. It has also given me the maturity to hold these complexities and feel both the love as well as the anger and sadness about the time I didn't get to have with her. I will close this episode off at the end of her life, as she lay in the hospital bed in a sad little town called Ruskin. My siblings had taken turns sitting with her, making sure that she was not alone. It was late, approaching midnight, and everyone was leaving to get what sleep they could. They said it would be okay to leave for a few hours. She was heavily dosed with morphine, as the cancer had metastasized and her organs were failing, so there was immense pain. Although she was unconscious, I insisted on staying with her throughout the night. In the moment, I was afraid that she might die and I might miss it, that she would be alone. It was one of the longest nights of my life, but also one of the most peaceful and reassuring. I stayed by her bed and listened to her slow, uneven breathing and held her hand. She made it through the night, and so did I, but that would be her last. This is a work in progress and something of a different format from my usual content, but I appreciate your time and attention. I'm not sure for how long or how many episodes this series will run, until I have nothing more to say about it, I suppose, but for now, thanks for listening. If you have questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes, feel free to share them with me via social media or email me at finloslives@gmail.com. Or you can leave a voice message via the SpeakPipe app at finloslives.com. If you enjoyed this content, I hope you'll share the podcast. I look forward to our next conversation.